Friday, July 19th, day 359, and we are closing in on a full year. I know that this part of the reboot only started at video number 300, but nonetheless, for me, it's a full year since the first Danish only video I made. In Copenhagen because I was just at the cinema to see the movie Now You See Me, and I found it a very good movie, very entertaining and very interesting. But there are things in my mind clouding my thoughts. I'm going to try and make this a bit briefer than the Danish one. Danish video, I was still thinking a couple of things through while talking about them. It kind of developed. It should have been simple, but thoughts began growing in my brain as I was talking about them. I guess when they get attention, they start to grow. This is a travel card. The Danish travel card. Rejsekort. It's under a lot of criticism, and there are reasons for that. We used to have, well, we still have it, but they want to get away from it. A system of paper cards, punch cards, that I've heard is supposed to be, or at least at one point was, one of the best, if not the best system in the world. Because it was efficient, nice, smooth, all those kinds of good things. This one, not the same luck. I realized when I left the movie that I've probably forgotten to do one of the stupidest things about the card. I think there is, in London, there is something called the Oyster card. I think it works along similar principles. But I'm not sure. I'm going to find out when I get to London. Probably similar things around the world. But the idea is that you don't just punch your ticket to get in, you also punch it to get out. And anyone who has been on a busy subway, whether or not they themselves are in a hurry, will know that it's not a place where you hang around and have a lot of time with your thoughts. So of course you forget it, and I happen to be a slightly more forgetful than usual character, so I forget it more often. I think I forgot it this time, but I forgot if I forgot it. The thing about it is, the old cards were fairly simple. Sure, you had to buy them, piece by piece, but supposedly that's possible by cell phone now, and I'm going to look into that because I'm kind of tired of the travel card. But what bothers me is that what is supposed to be simple is, with help from technology, made more bothersome. There's a rule I have about technology. There's a rule I have. It's a rule I have about basically everything that you have to put an effort into. You only make changes if they are to a very broad extent, preferably, exclusively, advantageous, if they make things easier or better. This card doesn't. Yeah, you don't have to buy as much, but there are methods of buying at the tracks, at the stations. And as I said, cell phone version seems to be up and running, and I have to test it. But they specifically made a technology that made it more difficult, more cumbersome, to do something common, casual. And that's not good. people still look at me when I talk to my camera. And it kind of, I'm not even sure, I'm trying to connect the dots here from my Danish video. I'm not sure how the thoughts kind of spun out of control. But what I'm trying to do with what I do is make things a bit easier for people. Because the idea is you make things easier for people to do if you want them to do. And whatever you want people to do, you make it easier for them to do. I'm assuming that the Danish trains, the Danish train service, wants people to use it. But the idea of making things easier does not seem to be in vogue at this point. I'm trying to, the computer game is probably, it's in fact quite a direct example of it. I want to make it easier and more fun for people to try and create computer games of their own, to kind of get from idea to result a bit quicker. It's not rocket science, is it? Apparently it is, because it doesn't seem to be something people have done. There are plenty of tools out there, but they're all... One thing I didn't mention in the Danish version is when I was a kid, I was fascinated by ventriloquists. Still remember, I saw a German one. We had a lot of German television back then. We still do, but now we have more English. Saw a ventriloquist. Oh, nice. A ventriloquist on a German show who talked with his puppet while drinking a glass of water. That's fairly standard now, but to me it was a big deal then. I now know how ventriloquism works. I can even do a bit of it myself. I'm not going to demonstrate because I can't do that much and it's not that good. But my mother, when I asked her how do they do it, she told me that they had a special hole in their stomachs that allowed them to talk that way. And as I say now, it makes no sense how that would actually work, but I was a kid. Now she only said what was spread as a professional cover-up by ventriloquists, because if people know that what you're doing is easy, you're basically setting the stage for competition. And nobody wants that. So if you have a skill for making computer games, it is in your interest to not make that skill easier to obtain. You would devalue what you have. You would be creating your own competition. The part that starts to get tricky, even if we ignore the wind, what's calling for more wind? I have no idea how much of this can be heard. I hope a lot. But where things get a bit more tricky are the educational videos I've got planned. Because they're not just a spontaneous idea I all of a sudden had. They're part of something I believe quite strongly in. That belief is that our modern idea of education, from every last point of society, is not just flawed, it is an abomination. Because the idea is to cut the wings of those who want more, those who want to strive. The idea of school and education in general is to train a certain kind of mindset. The mindset differs a little from school to school and from level of education to level of education. The university has a different view on it than, say, a junior high school does. But the idea is stay in your place. And education takes a set amount of time. You do it in a specific ladder of progression. Sometimes, in special cases, you can jump something. But the idea is you stay in the place that you're assigned. You don't strive beyond your boundaries. And that, to me, is utterly disgusting, and is a notion that must be struck down whenever it arises. I am fairly alone in much of my doing with that opinion, it seems. You stay within your boundaries. I have seen many, usually girls, many students in school, who are rotting from the fact that they have to stay within boundaries that are too small, too restrictive. Those who want more are told to shut up. I was one of them, I admit it. It's hardly self-serving. I wanted more. Sometimes I wanted more before I really was ready for it. It's fairly common for me. Just watch the languages I try to learn, and I'm even thinking of taking on another before I even feel sure in Spanish and Swedish. The challenge drives me. But I see their wings clipped because the global religion of the day is the righteousness of mediocrity. If you strive beyond being mediocre, you are a troublemaker. And I don't think I'm talking about myself there anymore. 10 years back, yeah, sure. Now, I don't think it's me anymore. I think what I want to do, I'd like to say that I want to help those who want to rebel against mediocrity. But in honesty, I think I want to make people do it. Which doesn't make me a nice guy. Not sure if it makes me a bad guy, but it doesn't make me a nice guy. The idea is, what did I put it in the Danish version? We have a concept in Denmark. Well, it's everywhere, but this is our version of it, called pattern breakers. People who break out of patterns. And it's usually a term used in a positive manner to talk about kids and young people who break away from bad backgrounds. The poor, the alcoholics, the families that are heavily burdened, and the children who should actually inherit that burden, but who break away from it. What has occurred to me, and actually started dawning on me as I was speaking about this in Danish, is that we don't really see the idea of pattern breakers from all sides. What is a pattern breaker to you if you are part of the pattern? If you're part of what they break away from, the child that breaks from an abusive family, and I know children like this, or more correctly, I know the young adults that they've become, many different kinds of them. But when a child or a young person, or even an older person, breaks away from a lifetime of abuse, we all stand on the sidelines and clap our little hands. Yay! But what about the people they break away from? I'm not saying that they shouldn't break away from them. They should, very much, and we should do far more to make it possible and easy, both when they do it and afterwards, because it's not an easy life. Again, this is not myself I'm talking about. I had a good friend. I was lucky. But the ones they break away from, how do they see it? What little I know from that side of the field is that they feel betrayed, rebelled against, stolen, mocked, or even attacked by society at large. What if that pattern was mediocrity? What if that pattern was the idea that you have to fit in, even if that means kneecapping your own ambitions for being a better person, whatever better might mean? The girl in the class who tries to be better than what the textbooks teach, she's a pattern breaker. She's breaking from the ritualistic pattern of what you should learn in school. And it is a ritual, trust me. I've seen it from every side at this point, except your parent side, I guess. Or the school administrator, but, well, that counts too. She's a pattern breaker. She's also a troublemaker, because she's the one who questions education and what it is doing for her, because she could get much more out of maybe doing it on her own, or maybe seeking other ways. Why is there no room for her? Very often there isn't. There is a disgusting, despicable discussion in Denmark that has lasted for as long as I can remember, whether there should be put resources, oh my god, the command is right here, put resources into something for those who show talent and skill. Whether it is morally correct to support the idea of, and this is the despicable word that is being used, an elite. Not a privileged elite, but an elite of people, usually kids, whose only crime is to want more with their lives than what is offered by the standards, in whatever that is. That should not be a discussion. Whoever makes that a discussion should be thrown into the river and allowed to drift away. It should never be a discussion if someone has the right to better themselves beyond the goals that society or anyone else has set for them. The movie that I watched, Now You See Me, is the name, and I recommend the movie, had one interesting detail that wasn't really necessary. It could have been a good movie even without it. But without spilling the beans too much. The motive, or a significant part of the motive, for impressive action, for impressive deeds made by the main characters, the motive was in part simply to be able to do it. Now, what they did, that's another matter, but the idea that the motive is something as simple as I want to be able to do this struck a chord in me. Because it's something that we usually hammer down, and something as a teacher I've been taught that students should learn to think critically. Critical thinking, that's a big thing. But what when they criticize the ones who are teaching them? What when the ones who are teaching them to think critically are the ones they aim that criticism at? The ones they think critically about? What happens then? And the pattern is pretty clear there. We break with our principles and instill obedience and blind group mentality. Think critically about someone else. I don't know where this is really taking me. I don't know entirely where the street is taking me. I think I'm on the right track. Usually I take the train, but I wanted to do this while I was still in the city. There's no cross. Oh, there's a crosswalk there. Wow, lots of work around here. Find another place. But it's this odd battle against mediocrity that is getting on my nerves, and it's one I've struggled with a long time. In the beginning, I was trying to do more than was expected of me. I'm autistic, and although I know it's said with only good intentions, I'm tired of hearing well-meaning people tell me that I'm doing well for someone like me. I don't think many people understand the level of insult is locked in those well-meaning words. It's like looking at someone and saying, "You're doing well for a woman, or for a black person, or for a Jew, or for an anything." In those cases, we can clearly see that it's demeaning and quite repulsive. No matter how good the intention is, it's based in ignorance. But whatever I do, I'm always going to be judged according to that. The three levels, or the three sources, is my file, which comes up every time I have anything to do with the system. It is my Tourette's, which is typically visible, although people often think that I'm nodding at them, saying hi, even strangers. It's a funny way to get to know someone, and it has actually happened. And it's my choices in life. Mediocrity doesn't like when anyone tries to do something else, no matter what the direction is. In many directions, I fully understand why it should be frowned upon. But mediocrity also likes to cut people off that are only trying to better themselves beyond what is expected of them. I'm not pitying myself here. I feel fine with what I'm doing, although I would like to pay a few lesser prices for it, like fewer costs to be attached. But those are the details. I'm upset that it seems to be marking the world, and I like people who want to do impressive things. We cheer for them when they do something entertaining, but up until then, typically we view them and their ambitions as party tricks and hobbies. If they're lucky, if they're not lucky, they're troublemakers, annoying, and should just keep their mouths shut. Stick with mediocrity. Don't be too much better than the others, because you'll stick out like a sore thumb. But hey, a thumbs up is a thumb that sticks out. But this is the point where I'm going to stop the somewhat tangent and uncoordinated rambling. But that's what a bit of thinking can set off. So, hope it didn't offend. And you know what? If it offended someone, good. I don't think it did. If you're the kind that is offended by that, I have no idea why you're even listening to me in the first place.